any questions. Interject things that are important or have to do with class, or maybe even appropriately funny. But today I'm going to be talking about the Congress of Vienna. And with the Congress of Vienna, we are dealing with another one of these major meetings of a whole bunch of people after a major war. This one lasts about 20 years, if you want to think about it off and on. What was the last, and let's say, significant or important peace conference that we covered? Perfect. Yeah, it's the Peace of Westphalia, the Treaty of Westphalia, 1648, that ends, as some of you know, the 30 Years' War. Well, this one ends the Napoleonic Wars. It's called the Congress of Vienna. The next one that we'll talk about is in 1918, running into 1919. That also ends a major war. But this Congress of Vienna is dealing with the legacy of the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars. There's this whole thing about whether Napoleon is a continuation of the revolution or a perversion of the revolution. We're not going to debate that today, but really what the Congress of Vienna is interested in, what they want to preserve, what they want to do is they're all about legitimacy, they're all about the balance of power, and they're all about peace. And I would argue that those three things, legitimacy, balance of power, and peace, were completely overturned in the previous 20 years. Legitimacy would be, the person who is in charge of a country is the right person, a person who, at this point in time, if you think about it, is born into that position. Who's the illegitimate person that they're trying to prevent from ever happening again? Beautiful. And then also a balance of power, where obviously some these greater powers, there's five of them in total, that there is a balance of power that there isn't a hegemon, there isn't one nation that can completely, because of its abilities in whatever way, because it can defeat two or three or all four of the other powers. And of course, the balance of power was out of whack when Napoleon's country, France, was defeating everybody else for a good 20 years before it finally stumbles and falls. And then we have the opposite of what we had been going on, or what we had going on. Now we have peace. We had 20 years of war. So trying to preserve legitimacy, balance of power, and peace is what the Congress of Vienna is all about. Looks like this. There are really just four really important players in this game, even though hundreds of people show up trying to get a slice of the pie or trying to, negotiate their way into getting something out of this Congress of Vienna. The winners, the allies against Napoleon's France, were, of course, Great Britain, Russia, Austria, the Habsburg Empire, and Prussia, with France as the loser. And in general, at these peace conferences, whether we're talking about Westphalia or Congress of Vienna or even the Paris Peace of 1919, the question of how the winners should treat the losers is a very kind of pressing topic. What do you do? Do you treat them horribly so that they don't have the chance to rise again, or do you treat them generously so that they become a friend again, or they become not a rogue state, but a state that is getting along with all of the other ones? Well, the representatives of the four major powers that defeated Napoleon are Prince Clemens von Metternich. We'll just call him Metternich from here on out. He is the Austrian chief minister. He's not, the Habsburg person who is in charge of the Habsburg Empire from birth. He is instead a much more effective ruler as chief minister for the Habsburgs. This period of time, by the way, 1815 to 1848, is called the Age of Metternich. It's very conservative, and so you'll notice that this is the Congress of Vienna. So this is where they're meeting. They're meeting in this place where Metternich is in charge, and truly he's sort of the person in charge of the Congress of Vienna. Then also there is Russia, which is represented by their Tsar, Alexander I. Alexander I is the grandson of Catherine the Great, and he's kind of got an enlightened idea as well, being that he was educated by his grandmother for the time that he was very young. But at the same time, he's also kind of conservative, like his father, who he actually pushed from the throne. Britain, as a constitutional monarchy, doesn't have the king showing up. They have a foreign secretary, a guy by the name of Count Castlereagh, who is negotiating for them. And then Prussia is represented by King Frederick William III, the actual king of Prussia. And so the question of what each one of these states wants is the sort of dominant thing in the Congress of Vienna. Really, all four could agree that what they should do from here on out is try to restrain France. That is taking care of the balance of power. And so you'll see them redrawing the map of Europe in order to keep the balance of power pretty stable. There were really kind of two sides. Austria and Britain were really trying to restrain Russia and Prussia from trying to grab too much land. Russia and Prussia were really quite land hungry, as you'll see. And so there's kind of a lot of negotiations about how much land Russia and Prussia should get, how much land everyone should get. And of course, this is kind of tricky for Britain. Britain doesn't really want land on the continent. That would just make them vulnerable to being attacked. They like having the English Channel between themselves and the continent, I think. The border buffer states that get set up have to do with, once again, restraining France or keeping France bottled up. They really more or less just drew new borders based on whatever these winners of the Napoleonic Wars thought was best. They didn't take into consideration the people who lived in these various places and what nationality or ethnicity they were. They didn't really care about what the people wanted. They really just wanted to make sure that France would be kept under control. And so they created, out of the United Provinces of the Netherlands and out of what you and I know of as Belgium, that's been called the Austrian Netherlands or the Spanish Netherlands, that was thrown together again. It's like a resurrection of the 17 provinces that existed when Philip II was in charge. But they set this up as a kingdom of the Netherlands. And maybe some of you are sort of gasping for a second because, you know, the United Provinces of the Netherlands was a republic. But they set up, thank you very much, perfect. They set up this kingdom of the Netherlands, thinking that monarchies are more conservative, that they are more of the kind of states they want to see in Europe, and they set that up under William the First. And I'm sure you know what family William the First is from. I will pause so you can say it. The Oranges, that's right. William of Orange. There are many of them. Remember, there was one back in 1680 that became the King of England, not the same guy. But there's a new William I, King of the Netherlands, as a big state that borders France to try to keep France under control. There's also this place called Piedmont Sardinia that gets set up as a kingdom. And I'll show you that in just a second. We should keep our eye on Piedmont Sardinia, just like we're sort of keeping our eye on Prussia, because we know, sadly, spoiler, that Prussia someday will become Germany. Piedmont Sardinia, I'm just go ahead and do the spoiler now too. Piedmont Sardinia will one day become Italy, or sort of meld into Italy. So that gets set up as a kingdom. Prussia was given some territory as well on the left bank of the Rhine, right next to France, and then given also some of Saxony. They do this to keep the Prussians as a kind of tripwire right next to France. If France tries to invade the German states, they're going to hit Prussia right away. Switzerland was reestablished as an independent state, and then the rightful King of Spain, not a brother-in-law of Napoleon as King of Spain, but the rightful King of Spain, Ferdinand VII, was returned to the throne. So let's have a look at, hopefully I got a map for you here. Dang it. Let's look at that map. We're going to go forward and okay. So I don't like that one. I guess I do. In the north, on the border of France, you have this thing called the, actually, let me go on. Here we go. You can see Belgium and the Netherlands in the north there as a kingdom, and in the south you can see Kingdom of Sardinia is created. And once again, both of those are kind of like plugs keeping the French under control. Switzerland is there to keep the French under control, and then Prussia, as you can see, has also got some territory right next to France. But let's go back quite a bit. There we go. The spoils are the compensation. Here's how things get worked out in terms of what the Prussians get or what the Russians get and what the Austrians get. So Austria got some land in Italy. It got northern Italy, Lombardy and Venetia. Some of that territory they'd already had. It was taken away by Napoleon. They're getting it back. Really, for a long time, the Habsburgs of Austria control northern Italy, and this is going to be a sticking point over the 19th century, the 1800s. The old Holy Roman Empire, which was the Confederation of the Rhine with 16 states under Napoleon, gets sort of reshuffled again. It's called the German Confederation. It's dominated by the Habsburgs in Vienna, and it is now 39 states instead of 16 states. And it is, it's kind of a move back towards Holy Roman Empire in a weird way. It's just got a different name. There's nothing holy about it. There's nothing Roman about it. Really, there's nothing imperial about it either. But it is Germany, a kind of proto-Germany or a pre-Germany. And at this point in time, it's dominated by the Habsburgs because the Habsburgs are really quite powerful under Metternich. Russia got Poland back. You might remember Poland was resurrected for a time as the Grand Duchy of Warsaw by Napoleon. And then Prussia got some land. I just showed you some of that land borders France. And then they got some land to the south of Prussia as well. And Prussia is starting to gain size. And it's also gaining land that is going to have coal and iron ore in it. And I think you know what coal and iron ore is going to bring to Prussia. And perhaps that's one of the reasons why Prussia is going to be able to become the most powerful state and become Germany someday. So looking at this map here, you can see the Kingdom of Prussia got some territory. Once again, the left bank of the Rhine, and then some of that territory there that has the coal and the iron ore. Poland, for the most part, goes to Russia, and then Bohemia and the Austrian Empire, that looks pretty good. And then that yellow bit there, the Austrian gains, that looks pretty good too. Much of that they had before Napoleon, but they're getting it back. So I think we can see that Austria is really a pretty big empire, and Prussia is up and coming too. And once again, showing you some borders that were based upon the desires and the needs of the great powers. You can see the boundary of the German Confederation, that blue bit there. You can also see it's kind of weird. Do you see what's weird about the German Confederation and how the map or how the borders get drawn there? Do you see what's going on with Prussia and Austria? Yeah, and what part is split up? Okay. So here's what I want you to kind of think about. What they're trying to do is throw Germans in this thing, and they're trying to leave non-Germans out of it. And so if Prussia gets kind of split in half, and the Austrian Empire kind of gets split in half, there are lots of non-Germans in that Austrian Empire outside of the German Confederation. Quite frankly, there's a number of non-Germans inside too. And the same can be said of that bit of Prussia that is partially Polish and partially German in ethnicity. Exactly right. Perfect. Yeah. The Czechs are swallowed up in this German Confederation, and they are not German, and they know it, and it's going to be problematic here in about 30 years. Excellent point. There were some alliances. Once again, they're trying to keep the balance of power. And so the alliances are the original victory team, the Austrians, the Prussians, the British, and the Russians. And then within a very short period of time, about 3 years really, France gets to join an alliance with those other states. The purpose of an alliance, they have this thing called the quadruple alliance, then it becomes the quintuple alliance once France joins it, is once again to keep the peace and preserve the status quo. This is established in November 1815 for a period of 20 years. And so this works out really quite well. After this Congress of Vienna, there is a period of time where there are no wars between the European states, which is really kind of weird because it just seems like all these guys are constantly fighting each other. We won't have a war between some of these greater powers, these ones that you see there, until a very odd war that happens around early 1850s, and then it's just kind of a bizarre war. That's a one-off, and then we won't really see a big general war until World War I. But that quadruple or quintuple alliance is the first one. And once again, here's another map. I'm kind of map happy today. The quadruple alliance is Russia, Austria, Prussia, and Great Britain. There's some X's too, with some places we don't care too much about, like Spain and Sweden and so on. And then eventually France is going to be joining that in a quintuple alliance. Anybody want to say anything or ask anything about that? I'll just move on. I I think that's right. There was a 20-year period of war off and on. There was an illegitimate ruler who, challenged their own legitimate rules, let's say. And then France was a hegemon. France was really dominating everybody else. And so they just wanted to make sure that that didn't happen again. Let's go back. I don't think so. So the Triple Alliance in World War I is going to be Germany and the Austrian Empire and the Ottoman Empire. So, and then we have Britain, France, and Russia on the other side for the most part. So it's kind of a bit split up with German-speaking people together with the Turks. There's a kind of an odd alliance that gets put together. It's called the Holy Alliance, which even the word sort of sounds out of place in the 19th century. It seems like the Holy Alliance is kind of like the Holy Roman Empire. It should be, dead, or it should be something from the past. But this idea is from the Tsar Alexander the First, and then it gets even a little more bizarre than that. He obviously there's already like a quadruple alliance going on. But then Alexander comes to the assembled greater powers and says, hey guys, I have this great idea. We're going to call it the Holy Alliance. And it's about renouncing war and protecting the Christian religion. Now, every once in a while we get these people who renounce war or say they'll never go to war again. And you and I both know that that's really pretty ridiculous, because that just doesn't happen. They go to war right away, usually. And then protecting the Christian religion from what is kind of another bit. And Alexander's a bit of a dreamer. He's half conservative half the time, and then he's half enlightened half the time. But this is what he suggests to everybody. He says, hey, I want to call it the Holy Alliance. And I think the French and the British, who are more enlightened or more modern than, let's say, Russia, Austria, and Prussia, they sort of excuse themselves from the table, say they have to go to the bathroom, and they never come back. And that just leaves these autocrats, these folks who don't have a parliament, these folks who are absolute rulers, to say, yeah, Alexander, that sounds like a great idea. And so Russia, Austria, and Prussia become a kind of league of autocrats, more conservative than the rest. I think it's kind of cool. Just the idea of it. And for years, I've been trying to get people to use Holy Alliance as something that you say when you're surprised, like holy cow or holy whatever Batman. And so I'd like you to try that. I've been trying this for years to get people in AP Euro to say, like, I don't know, you get 100% on your DBQ and you go, Holy Alliance. Try that if that happens. But really what happens with this Holy Alliance is the three of them are going to push for squashing revolutions that break out during this age of Metternich, this very conservative age. And so Holy Alliance is that. It's a conservative league of autocrats trying to squash revolution and prevent change. Here they are, the three masters of the Holy Alliance. The one on the left is Alexander the First. The sour-looking guy in the middle is the Austrian leader. His name is Ferdinand, if I'm not mistaken. And then the guy on the right is Frederick of Prussia. And they kind of all look, they kind of have a similar look. We sort of updated the look for the 19th century, I think. And I don't know, I like the idea. Holy Alliance. So at the Congress of Vienna, really, it's all about legitimacy, balance of power, and peace. And these four great powers deciding what is what and not taking much else into consideration. They'll redraw borders, they'll give, one state over another territory because they won the war. They don't have to think about anything else really. And they set up this conservative age of Metternich. It's also called, by the way, the Concert of Europe, because these four or five powers are working in concert with another. They're generally on the same page about peace and balance of power and and also legitimacy. And so 1815 to 1840 is just that. It's a concert of Europe. It's a conservative age of Metternich. But during this period of time, there's going to be a bunch of national revolutions and a bunch of liberal revolutions that are attempting to upset the apple cart, and the Holy Alliance is going to have to come in, if they can, and squash things. And we'll see that happening over the next few lectures.